Welcome in, everybody. I am Benjamin Parker. This is Phantom Sports. This is Sports and Money. We have Robertson Byer back with us again tonight. We continue to work our way through the quarterback rankings. We've already done quite a few of the quarterback rankings. Tonight, we are doing what we call our second tier, which for me, it's kind of a Pro Bowl tier. That very good group, but not quite the elites. Robertson, how are you tonight? And how do you feel about your second tier?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. My second tier is I think it's interesting because I might have an omission or two that you might disagree with, but I also have somebody in there that you might disagree with as well. So it'll be interesting to see how our lists compare here.
That's why we have a show. And by the way, those of you out in the audience listening, um, feel free to post your own list. We would like that better than for you to tell us what idiots we are for having a different list, but feel free to post your own list. I will say this: when you actually sit down and do a list, it really starts to put in mind where these guys might actually rank instead of saying, well, how can that guy be a top 10 quarterback? Or can't believe you left that guy out of the top eight. When you actually start to do a real ranking, that's when it shows up why somebody might have worked their way into a top 10 or why they might have been left out of the top 10. So, those of you in the audience, by all means, feel free to post your own list. And I'm sure everybody that puts out a list will have a slightly different criteria. Robertson, are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready for this.
I'm going to start off first because I think I have one extra guy in my tier. I've got 13 total guys to make it in the top two tiers and six guys in this tier. So I'm at number 13 as my starting point here. A guy that I already know you have a lot higher on the list, and that is Matthew Stafford. I've got him ranked at number 13. Power arm. Yeah, I know. It's brutal. The one knock I have against Stafford is that his technique has always been questionable. That's really been the thing. Even if you start to supplement the fact that he's been on a bad team for so many years, and he has, when you actually start to break down the film on Stafford, he has not been consistent in terms of his delivery and in terms of his technique. That's always been one blemish for him. Nobody's ever questioned his arm. He has a power arm. He can throw the ball literally anywhere. And while he's not a runner, he is at least mobile enough to kind of move out of the pocket a little bit and extend plays a little bit. So it never questioned his talent. I always wonder, you never know, how hard is a guy actually working to improve his technique, or is it just kind of a mental block that he just never can quite get past? There's no way for me to know that, but I've got Stafford ranked at number 13. To be fair, I mentioned this last week when we talked about Stafford, I don't remember which week it was, but if Stafford had been on a different team, a different franchise, and had already had maybe three Super Bowl wins to his credit, I'm going to have him ranked a lot higher. So it's his bad fortune to be on the Lions, but that is my knock against him. I've got Matthew Stafford at number 13.
I think that's going to be our biggest, uh, gap in terms of like where our ranking is because I had him. Well, spoiler for we're releasing these videos kind of in reverse here, so we're recording in backwards. So, spoiler alert for people that are watching this in order. I have Matthew Stafford ranked at 6, and he's
Right.
got him at 13. That's 7 spots. So
Yep.
I feel like that's going to be our biggest difference there. Um, I, I I couldn't disagree with you more. Maybe you're right about the technique, and that you might be right about. But some guys, they just don't really need it. They can get away with the pure talent. They can get away with, I know I'm better than you, and I'm going to show you. And I feel like Matthew Stafford proved that this year. That you know what, I got my weapons, I got my guys. I'm going to pick you apart, and I'm going to burn you. And that's exactly what he did this year or this past year. And he won a Super Bowl, and he shut up a lot of people. Clearly not you, Ben, and that's fine because he'll just probably do it again this year. And again, that's fine. That's fine for me because I really love Matthew Stafford. Um, so enough about Matthew Stafford here. You're just wrong there, Ben. Respectfully. I appreciate your opinion. I really do. But you're just wrong here, and I appreciate the reasons that you're saying that, but
Oh yeah.
I disagree. So I have six guys. Yeah, right. One, two, three, four, five, six. Yeah, I have six guys in my second tier who I'm calling this tier. I need a little more. You're that close to being elite. Like you're right there. I just need a little bit more. I need a little bit more consistency. Need a little bit more firepower. I need a little bit more guts, some grit. There's something there that's got to happen. That's kind of like a common theme for these guys in my second tier. At number 12, you might be shocked. I don't know where you have this guy ranked yet. I have Matt Ryan. I have Matt Ryan as my number 12 guy. Some people might say that's a little high. He had a down year last year. I understand that. But in terms of, me and Ben, you've probably heard already that we're going based on who do you trust. Matt Ryan, they call him Matty Ice. You trust a guy with that kind of name. He's got ice in his veins in the fourth quarter, and I know he's choked some, but I feel like he's pulled out more games than he hasn't. And this year I'm excited for him on the Indianapolis Colts. He's got some weapons now. He has a run game, something he has seldom had in his NFL career. He has the talent. If he can just get his team over that hump. He's been to a Super Bowl. You can't ignore that. I understand that there's been a lot of quarterbacks that have been to a Super Bowl, but it's hard to get there. He was an MVP. He has all the tools. Maybe in his age he's losing a little bit on the arm there, but he never really had a huge arm to begin with. I just see him as maybe kind of like a Matthew Stafford, where he's kind of getting better with age here. Maybe a new change of scenery is going to be good for him. He's got to have a better team around him than he did in Atlanta. He's going to have a coaching staff that has, been with this group, maybe not with Matt Ryan, but they've been with this group for a few years now that, maybe this group's just going to insert the quarterback and then just take off from there. A lot of people have the Colts as a dark horse contender this year because of Matt Ryan. So if he can give us if he can just say win the Super Bowl this season, right? I don't think many people are going to have him outside of the top 10. Maybe you will, Ben, but maybe you will, because you do with Matt Stafford. He just won the Super Bowl, but and that's not recency bias necessarily on my part. It's just kind of like, I like Matt Stafford, but with Matt Ryan, I feel like he can move up a couple spots if he plays the way we all know he can't play. So that's my case for Matt Ryan at 12.
I like it. I don't have Ryan that high anymore on my list, but if you dial the clock back 2 or 3 seasons, I've always been a lot higher on Matt Ryan than some people have. I've actually really liked what Matt Ryan can do. I like the way he produces a lot of offense. Is he a perfect quarterback? No, but I've always really liked him ever since he first came out, and I've always had a very high opinion of Ryan. I won't give you my ranking on him yet. He's in the next tier down. But, yeah, in terms of trusting Matt Ryan, yes. Do I think he can have a good season with the Colts? Absolutely. Yeah. I like what the Colts have going on. I like their coaching staff. I like their front office. I like, in general, the way that they go about things. So I think it's a good fit there for Matt Ryan. My number 12. That was your number 12, correct, Matt
Yes,
Ryan?
sir.
All right. My number 12 is going to be a guy that I'm guessing you have higher, but I'm going to be interested to see. And that is Kyler Murray for Arizona. For me, Murray's a tough guy. Murray's a tough guy to grade because the explosiveness is there. There's no question about it that when he's on, he can play MVP level football. And then all of a sudden he doesn't.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah.
What happened? So it's really tough to place a guy like this on a list like this because he's so up and down. He might be in the top 6 one week, and he might be outside the top 20 the next week. But I think I've finally settled him at number 12. Obviously, he can run the football. He can throw the football. He's just not always the most accurate or the most consistent. So I really like Kyler Murray, but there are a lot of question marks about, leadership. Can he get along with other people in the locker room? Can he get along with the front office? Can he just put his head down and work? I think all those are valid questions. And, you don't have those questions about some of the other quarterbacks on this list, and you still have them about Kyler Murray. I think that's one reason that he's having so much trouble getting his money. So I'm at number 12, Kyler Murray. Feel free to talk to me about Murray, or feel free to move on to your number 11.
So that's a fair assessment of Murray. I'm not going to disagree with you with any of the points you made. I mean, they were pretty spot on there. I have him a little bit higher, but I feel like that's mainly because I was struggling. I was struggling with this tier here. Just kind of the next tier I have down, my third tier and this tier. I was struggling trying to sort these guys because I was trying to find, what makes these guys stand out from the others. And Kyler Murray has that thing that you alluded to where, man, when he's on, man, he is on. Like he's borderline unstoppable. I mean, he's got some Russell Wilson in him, maneuvering the pocket, scrambling out, finding open guys. I'm not saying he is Russell Wilson. I'm saying he's Russell Wilson like tendencies at times. He has mobility. He's shifty. He doesn't have Lamar Jackson type speed, but he has, he's got some wheels on him. That's a big part of what makes him special. And he has a pretty good arm. I'd say it's above average, probably top half of the league. He's got a big arm. Like you said, maybe not the most consistent with accuracy, but he's improving. I feel like that's important. He is improving every year that he's been in the league. And keeps going on natural progression here, then he's just going to be even better this season. We don't know that, of course. He might have peaked already, but we don't know that. So I have him a little bit higher than that, but I'm not going to argue on any of the points you made there.
Does Murray become? Well, I know the answer to this. The more expensive a guy is, if you assume that all these quarterbacks are making huge money, does Murray kind of keep that spot on the list, or does it start to fall down? Because right now he's on that rookie contract and he's kind of appealing, but once he's making a bajillion dollars, does he start to fall down the list a little bit?
So if he put together a year like he did this year, where he has 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, looking at the rankings, that's middle of the pack to top 12. 50 million, that's a lot. It's a lot to spend on a quarterback. And that's what he wants. And he's going to get it. He's going to get it. Like if the Cardinals don't give it to him, somebody else is going to. At least high 40s. Is that just the going rate for quarterbacks now? Yeah, I guess, but it's going to be hard to justify when you're getting to the playoffs, but you're not doing anything once you get there. And I understand this was his first year, but that was a bad game. I mean, that was a bad game. Now you're making me question my ranking of him, but it's hard to rank these guys. Like you said earlier, man, do the list. It's hard. I think his price tag, like if he was making 50 million this season, I don't think he'd be number. I'm not going to say what number he is. Caught myself there. He wouldn't be that high on my list. So yeah, to answer your question, long answer here, but yes, he would lose some value there.
All right. Well, there's a lot to talk about with Murray, but let's go ahead and get your number 11 on the list. And interested to see who it is.
It is. It's a guy that me and you probably disagree on. He was a hard guy to rank. It's Lamar Jackson. He did not have a good year last year. And I understand the Ravens had a really good record before he got injured, but he started off the year really well. I don't think anyone's going to dispute that. He really started out well, but as the season went on, he just kind of fell off. The team was struggling a bit. I understand there was injuries. I understand that it's a team sport, but if you're a guy that's asking for as much money as he's asking for, and if you're an MVP, you should be able to overcome those. You should be able to overcome injuries. You should be able to overcome not a terrible offensive line, but definitely not a good one. And I understand, I understand there's injuries, but you've got to be able to overcome that stuff. And Lamar Jackson didn't last year. And again, I understand he was injured, and I understand that, different things, but you got to be better than that. But again, he's like Kyler Murray in the sense of, like, man, when he's on fire. He is unstoppable, especially when he's got his legs going in the run game. I mean, my God, he's pretty unstoppable. What concerns me is the consistency with his arm, with the accuracy, with can you rely on him? Okay, it's 4th and 15. It's fourth quarter. Can he make the throw? Can he? Have we seen it much? I mean, I don't watch a ton of Ravens games, so I don't really know, but I wouldn't really trust him that much, to be completely honest with you. And this list is about trust. I mean, I would trust Matt Ryan more than Lamar Jackson, but Matt Ryan also doesn't have the ability that Lamar Jackson does. So that's why I'm saying I just need a little bit more. Even if he can be slightly above average as a quarterback, like as a thrower of the football, then he's easily vaulting himself into the top 10 here, easily, just because of the ability with his legs. So that's why I'm saying I just need a little bit more from Lamar. If you just be above average passer, and you got this thing down, and your team will go to the Super Bowl. I guarantee it. I understand we haven't had a bunch of running quarterbacks go to the Super Bowl, but Lamar Jackson can do it.
There's no question Lamar Jackson's a tough guy to grade, just like Kyler Murray. I think I'd rather have Lamar Jackson than Kyler Murray, but Jackson's up and down. I mentioned it to you, I think, in our last conversation that was off air. I thought the perfect encapsulation of this was last year when the Ravens played the Colts for basically 3 quarters, maybe even slightly more, slightly less than 3 quarters. Lamar Jackson did almost nothing in that game against the Colts. I think the Colts were up something like 24-7, 24-3. It was something like that. The Colts had the game won. The game was over. It was in control. And then all of a sudden, Lamar Jackson went to a phone booth and grabbed a Superman cape, and he comes out. And the game goes to overtime, but Lamar Jackson does everything in that game. He runs, he throws, he runs, he runs some more, he throws some bombs. He was unstoppable in the fourth quarter and overtime. And you're like, why didn't you do that the rest of the game? It just kind of leaves you scratching your head. But you're right. He had a good start of the season, and then it tailed off, partly because of injuries, but partly because of, Lamar's just inconsistent. It's part of his DNA. Will he ever outgrow that? I'm not sure that he'll ever completely outgrow that. What you might see from Lamar Jackson is you might see a season in which he is an MVP again and they win the Super Bowl. And then the next year, he's back to average. He has that roller coaster DNA to him. So I'm not going to tell you where he's at on the list for me yet. But yeah, I agree. That's kind of the nature of Lamar Jackson for sure.
So are you saying that he's a fast Joe Flacco?
That's so wrong, man. This is so wrong to compare him to Flacco.
I'm just saying, man. I mean, it was kind of the same with him. He had a really good season. They go deep in the playoffs, and then next year he was just bottom feeder.
It's a fair question in terms of consistency. All right. My number 11, we just did your number 11 with Lamar Jackson. I'm going to go ahead and pop my number 11. I don't think this guy's probably going to be as high on your list, but I'm interested to see. My guy is Derek Carr at number 11. Now, in years past, I had Carr in my head located somewhere around 15 to 17. Coming off of last year, I'm even more impressed with him. He's always had the arm. He's always had the ability to move the football. I think for the first time last year, we saw him go up against really tough adversity from almost every angle. And, it wasn't the greatest season for the Raiders, but largely because of him, they had a pretty solid season, and they didn't tank with 4 or 5 wins. They had a pretty solid season. He was a huge part of that. He's always been able to move the football. So I have Dak Prescott Derek Carr at number 11, which is higher than I expected to put him. But when I started putting this list together, this is where he fell for me. And he's very consistent. He's generally not up and down. He can have a bad game, But in general, you know what you're going to get from Derek Carr. So I've got him checking in at number 11.
I have him in actually my third tier, but I struggled to put him in the third tier. Just because of the points you alluded to. You know, it's I just haven't. I don't want to say I haven't seen enough, but like there's just something there that I really want to like, but I haven't liked it yet. Like
Right.
he's like between the second and third tier for me. If I could make a tier by itself, it would just be Derek Carr. Like
The Derek
because
Carr
he's
tier.
just the
Yes.
Derek Carr tier. I actually might do that. I'm gonna do that in the next video. I have my tier. I'm gonna call it Derek Carr. But yeah, there's just something there that's just making me hesitate to put him in that second tier. And I don't know, maybe it's because he's on the Raiders. Maybe that's it. I mean, he had a great season. What was that? His second year where he was an MVP candidate, but then he got injured, and but I feel like he hasn't really reached back to close to that level. I mean, maybe he's gotten close, but he hasn't reached back to that level yet. He hasn't fallen off by any means. He's still been a very, very, very good quarterback. There's just something there that I'm not liking, and I don't know exactly what it is. But I definitely want to see more. I think a team can win with him. Maybe if he was on a different team other than the Raiders, I think he'd do well, maybe better. But there's just something there I'm not liking. I really want to like him, but there's just something there that I'm not liking.
And I think the one thing we could keep pointing back to for folks who don't see this list the way we do, and that's fine. I think the Kirk Cousins factor really kicks in hard here for a lot of these quarterbacks. Is when you look at Cousins' numbers, they are surprisingly good, and yet there aren't too many people outside of the Vikings organization apparently who would give Cousins anywhere near the amount of money that he's getting. There's a few teams who would, but by and large, Cousins does not have the greatest reputation. But when you look at his stats, they're at times eye-popping, really. So I think that's the same thing we run into with a lot of these quarterbacks is, do I like what I'm seeing? Do I trust what I'm seeing? And sometimes the answer to that is no, even when the statistics are good.
That's exactly. I didn't want to compare him to Kirk Cousins because even though I have them very close on my list, I didn't want to compare the two because I think they're just very different quarterbacks, but they're the same at the same time. They put out these great stats, but the only stat that matters is in that W column, and they haven't always gotten it done. Kirk Cousins made the playoffs a couple times. Derek Carr's made the playoffs a couple times now, but when they get there, they don't really do much. And, you got to fork over a lot of money to these guys. And it ends up hurting your team more than it does helping. So I don't really want to compare the two because I like Derek Carr a lot better than I like Kirk Cousins, but they're almost the same. And it's mainly just because of the situation, really. It's not necessarily those two as quarterbacks. I'm having a hard time explaining it, but it is kind of the same.
I think another factor you could call it is the Andy Dalton factor. Nobody would doubt that Dalton produced and that Dalton could win regular season games, but in the regular season, never. So did anybody actually trust Andy Dalton to quarterback their team? Not really. Could he be an upgrade in bygone years over what a lot of teams had at quarterback? Yeah. Does he give you a chance to be relevant? Yes. But in a rankings list, where do I put him? Well, he starts to fall down the list a lot. And I feel differently about Derek Carr, but that's the factor that we're running into here on this list, as opposed to just looking at the statistics or just looking at the talent here. All right, so your 11 was Jackson, my 11 was Carr. Who's your number 10?
I actually got Kyler at 10, Kyler Murray at 10. For many of the reasons that I alluded to, the talent there is undeniable. When he's on, he's on. The main thing is, can he be consistent? And I don't like putting Kyler Murray as a top 10 quarterback. I just don't because, again, I just need that little bit more, and I don't really think he's he's earned that ranking as a top 10 quarterback yet. But again, I got to put these people somewhere. I got to put them somewhere. So I'm not confident saying that. I'm not confident saying that he's a top 10 quarterback. I'd rather say he's 11B or 11A, instead of 10. But I just need a little bit more from him. I need another consistent season.
I think that's the title of our video now. I got to put these people somewhere.
So true. I got to put him somewhere. But he had a really good season. There was a lot of MVP hype, early on in the season, which is fair. He had some really good games, but then the Cardinals just kind of fell off. So I don't want to take away from him, but I do question, like you said, I do question his commitment. I question if he can put another season like this together and get better. But I think he's going to, because like I said, he's gotten better every year. We don't know if he's peaked. I don't think he has, though. I think he can be an MVP type player, and I think if he, keeps his mentality and mindset right, then the Cardinals can go a long way because they have a good team, and I think they'd be winning games because of him, not in spite of him.
All right, so that's your number 10, Kyler Murray. Mm-hmm. My number, and we've already talked about Murray a lot, so I won't double down on that right now.
Right.
My number 10 is a guy that I like, but I probably wouldn't have put him in my head. I wouldn't have put him this high on the list until I really started looking at the list, and that is Dak Prescott at number 10 for the Cowboys. Prescott's very consistent. I mean, you talk about Murray and Jackson not being very consistent. Dak Prescott is very consistent, but his top end isn't what those guys are. He can't run like those guys can. He doesn't have the explosive arm that those guys have. He's just very consistent. Now, before I put this list together, I probably in my head would put him maybe top number 15. But when I started putting the list together and started, comparing guys to each other, Prescott's just so much more consistent than Jackson or Murray. And I think at times Derek even more consistent than Derek Carr. So I've got Prescott and Carr just almost side by side here, really. But Prescott has had the advantage of playing behind a good offensive line for most of his career. He has had the advantage of a good running back for a fair amount of his career. And in a lot of seasons, he's had some decent wide receivers to throw to. So you can always factor that in. But in general, I think Prescott's consistent enough to where when you look at the other guys, listen, he doesn't have the arm that Matthew Stafford has. Not even close. Like Stafford's got this power arm. Ever since he came from high school, Stafford's had the power arm. But Prescott has the consistency, and that's what I like. Is he limited deep down the field? A little bit, yeah. But I think that's what I like about Prescott, so I've got him checking here at number 10.
I definitely agree with you because, a little bit of a segue here. I have him as my number 9 guy. We're going to get to it in a minute, but I have him as my number 9 guy. And when I thought about this list, just initially, just initial thoughts, I was like, man, Dak's not going to be top 10. He might be like top 15, And then again, I got to put these guys somewhere. And I'm like, man, is he really a 9? And, for you, 10, you're like, man, is he 10? I'm like, is he 9? But this was Dak's best statistical year. And looking back at the season, I wouldn't have known that. It just maybe, and I'm a Washington fan. If anyone doesn't know yet, I'm a Washington fan, and it kind of pains me to say that. But I like Dak Prescott. I got nothing against the guy other than he's a Cowboy. He's a good guy, model citizen, a decent enough quarterback. I don't think he's really top 10 material. And it's not because he doesn't have the biggest arm. It's just when you need him most, he just seems to come up short more than not. And that bothers me. But like you said, he's always consistent. You know what you're getting with him. There's not really much of a question the production you're going to get from him. Game in, game out, you're like, okay, do we need to run the ball more than throw it? That's always a conversation, but you shouldn't have to have that conversation with the top 10 quarterback, to be completely honest. But, you do with Dak. I like him. I don't like him that much though to put him any higher than 9. Um, but I trust him more than I trust, like you said, I trust him more than Kyler. I trust him more than Lamar. Probably right now I do trust him more than Matt Ryan. Um, and that's mainly because of the team around him. He does, like you said, he has the weapons, he has the offensive line, he has the run game, not necessarily with Zeke, but definitely Tony Pollard. As a Cowboy fan, even you have to understand that Tony Pollard is more reliable at this point in their careers than Zeke is. So I like Derek Carr probably more because I mean not Derek Carr, jeez, Dak Prescott, um, more than those guys, mainly because of the consistency, like you alluded to.
I agree. And probably what's lurking in the back of my mind, to his credit and to the Cowboys' debit, is that he has played for the Cowboys. And even though he's had good weapons around him, I've always wondered if maybe the organization hasn't gotten in his way a little bit from a GM standpoint and from a coaching staff standpoint. And if you were to take Prescott and put him on the Rams or put him on the Patriots, put him on the Ravens, maybe he already has a Super Bowl win by now. I think it's a fair question to ask, even with acknowledging that he doesn't have the legs of Murray or Jackson, and he doesn't have the powerful arms of Jackson or Stafford. I think it's a fair question to ask. If you put him somewhere else, would he already, in a different system, would he already have a Super Bowl win? So I think under that rookie contract, I think the answer might have been yes, but we'll never know. So, all right. So I had Prescott at 10. You've got him at 9. I guess let's see. Do you want my number 9 guy, or do we want to go to hit your number 8 guy?
You go ahead and do number 9.
Okay. Did we skip one of your guys?
Nope.
Okay.
Because I had Kyler at 10, and I just kind of segued into my number 9 guy because we had your guy was 10, then it was just going to bounce back to me at 9. So I just covered Dak.
Absolutely. All right. So my number 9 guy is Russell Wilson, and obviously I love Russell Wilson. Okay. So the only reason he's down here this low is because of the age factor. I wonder, and we'll find out this season, I wonder if he is still the Russell Wilson that we saw 4 years ago. I think at times he can still be that good, but can he be that good every single game, every single play? That's where I start to back off of him a little bit. Same thing with Matt Ryan. Love Matt Ryan, but because of the age kicking in here, I'm starting to scale back. But obviously, I think Ryan's several years older than Wilson. So I think Wilson can have a very good season. I'm not picking the Broncos to win the Super Bowl, but it wouldn't shock me if they did. I think there's enough there to where they can at least entertain the thought of that. And Wilson would be a huge part of that. So I like the Broncos grabbing Wilson. I like Wilson. He can do a lot of stuff. And I think he's going to have a pretty good season. So I've got Wilson checking in at number 9 here.
I agree with your analysis, but I disagree with the ranking. I definitely do think the Broncos can win the Super Bowl this year. I don't think they're going to, but I think they're definitely going to be very competitive. I think they can make a deep playoff run. I just don't know that they get to the Super Bowl, but it wouldn't shock me in the least. I love Russell Wilson. He's in my top tier. We disagree with that. I don't think his age is going to impact him like some people think. And that maybe that's because he runs around a lot, but it's not like sheer speed. Like if he loses half a step, I don't think it's going to affect him too much. I just don't think he is, because it's a different kind of speed that he has. Like it's more shiftiness in the pocket. He's lack of a better comparison here. He's kind of like Tony Romo. Like Tony Romo never had straight line speed, but he could manipulate the pocket. He was kind of not a master at it, but man, he was dang good at it. Mm-hmm. And kind of like Big Ben too. Big Ben can manipulate the pocket. I mean, granted, he would just let guys bounce off of him, but he could manipulate the pocket. Now, Russell Wilson does it better than leaps and bounds better than those guys do, but it's not like you don't need straight line speed to do that. So if Russell Wilson loses half a step here or even a full step, I don't think it's going to affect him that much. So I'm not that concerned about his age. He never had the strongest arm to begin with either. I mean, he has a pretty strong arm, but he never had like a cannon. So, if he loses a little bit there, again, not a huge concern necessarily. But, I really love Russell Wilson. I have him a lot higher than 9. But, I agree with your analysis that he can definitely win the Super Bowl this year.
Russell Wilson's a guy who I would almost create his own category for, because this is where the list starts to get really, really, really tough. I just like the guys ahead of him so good. Wilson fell to this spot. It's not like I'm trying to disrespect him here. I just like the other guys so good. I might would scoot Wilson ahead of Jackson if I'm, depending on what day I'm waking up. But those top 7 guys, I just like those top 7 guys so good that's why Wilson got pushed out a little bit. Is really what it came down to for me.
Respectable. I mean, I like I said, I agree with your analysis. I just have him higher.
That was my number 9. We had your number 9 with Dak Prescott. So let's go ahead and move to your number 8.
Justin Herbert. I know that for me, that's uncharacteristic for me, mainly because second year guys, they usually have a sophomore slump. This guy didn't. He had a fantastic year. He threw for 5,000 yards, 38 touchdowns. That's something I ain't never seen before from a second year guy that had a fantastic rookie year. I don't think we've seen that for quite some time, if ever. I could be blanking, but a 97 quarterback rating. That's incredible for a second year guy, especially when his rookie year he had a 98. Because with these big rookie seasons, we always think, oh, okay, he's gonna regress back to the mean here in his sophomore season. But no, this guy just exploded, and there's a reason the LA Chargers are, I think they're top 10 Super Bowl favorites, maybe top 5. I haven't checked the odds recently, but I wouldn't surprise me. The thing that bothers me most about Herbert is that the Chargers didn't make the playoffs with that generally the same team. And I know they added some big pieces this offseason. I really like what they did this offseason, but generally speaking, the same team. And they didn't make the playoffs. And I understand it was close, but, if you're, that guy, you got to get it done. That's what I'm saying. I just need a little bit more. I just need a little bit more from Herbert. Just start winning some more games, and then you'll get to that top tier for me. So I don't think that's a necessarily unfair analysis or unfair opinion. I know you disagree, but that's where I got Herbert ranked. I got him at 8.
Oh yeah, and I love Herbert. I've got Herbert way up the list, and I would want to put Herbert even higher on the list than I have him. But again, this depends on how much you trust him. I trust him, and you're still kind of waiting to see if he gets to that point. My number 8 is a guy that we've already talked about, so I'm not going to spend long on him, but this is where I have Lamar Jackson spotted. And again, depending on what day I wake up, I might have Russell Wilson at number 8 and Jackson kicked back to 9. Jackson's just so talented.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he is on, he's unstoppable. You can't touch the guy. But there's so many times where he's off. So that's why he falls back to number 8, the consistency. We already talked about that. So I really like Lamar Jackson. Is he as likable of a quarterback when he starts to make a lot of money? And now the rest of the roster isn't as good because you're soaking money from other positions and investing it in Lamar Jackson. And if you couldn't sniff a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson on a rookie contract, how much likely are you to get one with him on a mega millions contract? So
yeah,
it gets a little bit less attractive, but I still like Lamar Jackson. You can't let him go. I mean, they're trying to sign him. They want to sign him. They want to give him the money. I would rather be paying Lamar Jackson a lot of money than to be in the bottom half of the league searching for my next quarterback. Is how I feel about it. So I really like Lamar Jackson in spite of the inconsistencies. He's number 8. He's your number 11. I think I already know who your number 7 is. I think he's the only guy I possibly left that could fit at number 7, but I'm going to hear you say it. And if it's not this guy, I'm going to be shocked.
It's Carson Wentz. No, it's not. It's not.
That's it.
No. It's Joe Cool. It's Joe Burrow. and I know you have him in your elite tier. Fine, whatever. I understand it. But here's the thing with Joe Burrow. Okay. I just haven't seen enough. Not that I've seen the ability, I've seen the leadership, I've seen that it factor that's just so dang good and indescribable, unquantifiable. He just plays with this this thing that we've only really seen from Brady. And honestly, we've only seen this kind of thing from Brady. And that's why he's so high up on my list. But I just need a little bit more. I understand he made it to the Super Bowl this year, and that big props for him for that. That's why he's so high on my list. But I just need a little bit more. If you just give me another season, maybe not even making to the Super Bowl, because that's unrealistic to expect, a team that probably realistically shouldn't have been there. If we're being honest with ourselves, they probably shouldn't have been there. But, that's the thing. They shouldn't have been there, but Joe got them there. And that's something to be said for that. Yep. Do something like that again next year. You're elite, dude. You might even be top 5. I'm serious. Right. Like you'd probably vault him top 3. I wouldn't go that far, depending on the season he has. But I just need a little bit, just that much more. And then I'll consider Joe Burrow elite. Until then, he's in my second tier. I just need a little bit more.
Well, the funny thing is, we both have him ranked number 7 out of quarterbacks, but I've got him in my elite group, and you've got him in the next group down. That's where our cutoff switches over. But we talked about it with Burrow. He's got that intangible that only Tom Brady in the league has right now. Brady's the only guy who seems to have that all the time, and Burrow seems to have it all the time. But Burrow does have a little bit of a limited arm. He's not going to stretch you downfield the way Matthew Stafford can, or the way Patrick Mahomes can, or the way Aaron Rodgers can, or the way Justin Herbert can, or the way Josh Allen can, or the way Deshaun Watson can. He does not have that kind of arm. He's just got this it factor in spades that nobody else has. So, everybody's struggling with something except for Tom Brady, apparently.
So I have a question. Do you think there's a quarterback in the league right now that has an average to above average arm that maximizes that potential of that arm, that limited arm, the way that Joe Burrow does? Because I don't think there is. I've never seen a guy that maximizes that ability more than Joe Burrow does.
No, I don't think so. I think, and I've got to leave Brady at number 1 in terms of maxing out potential.
Well, okay. I mean, but that's Brady though.
But after Brady, there is nobody else. And again, he's only done it for 1 year, which is why you've got him in your second tier. But there is nobody else who's done it who's maxed it out the way Burrow did last year. Nobody. I mean, there's guys with more talent, but they're not maxing it out at the moment. We've seen all the other guys struggle. Mahomes, Rodgers, Herbert, Allen, you name it. We've seen them all struggle, and those are the elite guys. So no.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a guy that just, in terms of limited arm, maximize it the way that Joe Burrow has. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I apologize. My AirPods died out, so I'm switching over to a speaker, and hopefully you'll be able to hear me just fine after that. But
yep,
I agree. Okay. I think Burrow really, really maxes out, and I'm kind of waiting to see if he can keep doing that. Because you always think about Joe Namath. Well, Joe Namath really didn't have a lot of great years. He was kind of a spotlight player with, 2 or 3, 4 excellent years, and then the other years where he was quite honestly just average. And I don't know how seriously Joe Namath even worked on his craft, to be honest. So I'm kind of waiting to see if Burrow continues to work his way through this for an entire career, the way it looks like some of the other quarterbacks are trying to do, to be honest. But his in-game intangibles are untouchable.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, that's our second tier. That's my Pro Bowl group. And for Robertson, that's the group that needs to show us just a little bit more. Anything else for tonight, Robertson?
Nope. But if you're watching this in order, stay tuned for that first tier, because we have some interesting conversations in that video. We've already recorded it, so I can say that. So we're going to have some interesting conversations in that video.
There's a lot to talk about. So, Robertson, tell people where they can find you if they want to hear more of your content or read more of your content.
So I write for phantomsportsindustries.com. You can find my articles on there. I cover the Commanders for Phantom Sports. Also do some other NFL writing. And you can follow me on Twitter at RELVIAR99.
All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching this, Robertson. I've enjoyed it as always. We'll see y'all next time. Goodbye.